So here's kind of the most unusual thing about Rocketship probably. When I was thinking about how do you make something that's KIPP-like in results but not KIPP-like in terms of the cost to the adults, the thing that just struck me was that schools are poorly funded and will continue to be poorly funded, and we can complain about that all we want, but you know, it'd be better to figure out what's a way that you can get around that problem. And so what I thought about was, well, how do you kind of actually get a little bit more money into the system to do things that you want to do that would make your school better? There's no obvious way to do it just by, I don't know, increasing class sizes to 50 or something silly like that. So what we did was we came up with this thing we call the hybrid school model. It's a form of blended school. And there are three components to it. So here's kind of a traditional school here, kindergarten classrooms with teachers, the way an elementary school looks. We did three things down here that make Rocketship different. One, we went to block scheduling, which for an elementary school is quite unusual, normal for secondary, not normal for elementary. Two, our teachers teach single subject. So instead of teaching all subjects all day long, we have literacy teachers that teach literacy, math teachers that teach math. We are an understanding by design school, so we're project-based learning, so the math teachers actually use science as the themes for their math, and the literacy teachers use social studies as the themes for their literacy, so they're kind of woven together. But by focusing on, you know, literacy and math, especially in low-income schools, you can get really good at diagnosing the problems that kids have when they come to you, as opposed to teaching everything and trying to do your planning and stuff like that. If you're doing math all day long, you can get pretty good at teaching math. So that was one of the things that we did. Lab is a 100-minute period that was designed to allow kids to practice and do things in an individualized manner without the need for a teacher. And so when we started 3 years ago, Learning Lab consisted of independent reading, 40 minutes of independent reading, 40 minutes on computers, and 30 minutes or so on enrichment. So music, RPE, we bring in external organizations that do that for us. But so when you add all this stuff up, what is interesting is that instead of 4 teachers in the schedule for these 4 classes of kids, you only need 3. Right? So you've got literacy teacher A, literacy teacher B, and math is the teacher C. So, and they teach all these classes all day long. So what it means is that you basically save 25% of your staffing costs. And for a school of our size with 450 kids, that adds up to $500,000 a year that we save. And the nice thing about that savings as a nonprofit, it's not like, you know, you kind of put it in the bank. You roll this, it's actually $550,000 into a few things that make your school better. And so I like to say it's like somebody just writing you a check for $500,000 every year and saying, do good things to improve your school. And the theory being that this kind of individualized learning, targeted learning for kids has a lot of value and frees up the resources to make the rest of your program work. So that's really in contrast to what I would say that KIPP or Uncommon Schools or some of the other high-performing charters do, which is really about more time, more classroom time. So we're kind of more on the better individualized time, but use the extra money for other things rather than just max out the number of hours that kids are in the classroom. Academic deans, so these are former master teachers that are spending full time working with our teachers to improve their instructional practice. So at each school, they're there full time. There's 1 per school. And you can imagine how that's very helpful for a young teaching population in particular. Those first couple of years where you're not really sure what's going on sometimes, to have somebody that's really focused on improving your teaching, working with you with defined goals. We have 3 goals per 8-week period based on assessment results that teachers are working on, and the academic team is working on those things with them. So the stat we always throw out is, I actually don't know the overall Teach for America first year teacher effectiveness number now. It was, last time I looked, it was in the, about 25 to 30% of first year Teach for America teachers make 1.5 years of gain or more. And at Rocketship the last 2 years they've made 75%. 75% of the teachers have made 1.5 years or more their first year at Rocketship. So about 3 times the national average for TFA, which you can imagine, you've got somebody working with them full time to make them better. We're extremely intensive with the bottom 20% of our kids being in the after school program. And the reason we did it that way is that we realized that most of the kids during kind of classroom time get a lot out of it, they learn a lot, but when you're down at the bottom, kind of our, in California, far below basic and below basic are our bottom 2 quintiles. When you're down there, you're missing a lot of the value of the class. You're either an English language learner, you're not understanding, or your literacy skills aren't such that you're getting it, and so you're just wasting all of that time. And so the idea with RTI really is to get in there and give very targeted instruction to the kids that need it most and get them up. And last year we had 91% of those kids move out of those bottom 2 quintiles to basic and above. So by the end of the year they were at basic and above. At basic and above you're in the classroom, you're learning. So that's been very valuable for us. As I said, we pay teachers 20% more than districts. We want to, over the next few years, really start to ramp that up. I'll talk about the fit between that and online learning, which is an interesting thing. As we do more and more online learning, we can pay more and more. And our goal would actually be to double the teacher pay. The last thing that we do that's also interesting is that we can buy land, build buildings, and start schools without raising additional philanthropy. So instead of kind of the normal charter school ask where it's, I want to start a new school, I need $500,000 or $1 million. Once we're established in a region, it's about 5 schools that it takes to pay for our support staff for that region, then every school we're starting after that pays for itself from day one, cash flow positive. So you can imagine how this kind of changes the way that charter schools work, because you're not really depending on anyone for your facility. You can grow as many schools as you want to grow, as much demand as there is, etc. So it's a little bit different way of looking at things. And this is kind of an obtuse slide that shows kind of how many schools to sustainability. So at the school level, we actually get cash flow positive year 1 of a school. In a region, we've got 7 here, which is actually 5 now. And our network, even in terms of going to new cities and starting schools in new cities, at about 36 schools, about 3 regions, we're cash flow positive, even as we're opening new regions. So just a different model and approach, I think, to charter scalability, which, you know from listening to Secretary Duncan or others, we've got these 5,000 schools out there that need help. Somebody's going to have to figure out how to do a lot more than 10 or 20 schools if we're going to accomplish that. So that's part of what Rocketship is about.